Hello and welcome everyone to our community presentation. We are so grateful for all of you that are here and taking the time to be a part of this very important discussion about embracing all abilities in the church. My name is Stephanie Fontanez,
And I'm Nicolette Malios.
and we are occupational therapy students from SUNY Downstate's Health Sciences University. And this presentation is a piece of the larger project that we have been implementing at St. Demetrios. And our hopes are to provide you with a little information about what occupational therapy is, bring awareness to the barriers to inclusion that exist in the church, and provide some insight on the importance of the role that all parish members play in making the church inclusive and accessible to children of all abilities.
So, what is occupational therapy? Occupational therapy is a healthcare profession that values meaningful occupations during therapeutic activities. Occupations are everyday meaningful activities that we participate in within our homes, in our community, with family members, friends, and even by ourselves. Some examples of occupations include getting dressed, toileting, showering or bathing yourself, cooking a meal, going to the grocery store, working at your job, participating in school, or even walking your job, just to name a few. And OTs help individuals with disabilities work towards independence by developing the skills that they need to engage in whatever daily occupations are meaningful to them. Our job is really to help people build skills that are essential for independent functioning, health, and well being. We can work with individuals of all ages who have injuries, illnesses, or disabilities through the therapeutic use of everyday activities that are meaningful and motivating to our clients, or we can even adapt the environments that they interact with to ensure success. We value the importance of working as a team with our patients to problem solve the best plan of care to support their needs according to their own values, preferences, beliefs, and culture. Occupational therapy is such a diverse field, and we work with many different individuals in many different settings. For example, in a school setting, we may work with a child who has difficulties in handwriting or paying attention in class. And we help this child build the skills that they need to be able to engage in class lessons and be successful amongst their peers. In a hospital, we work with individuals of all ages to build strength and improve function. For example, we might work with a person who is recovering from a hip replacement surgery to help them heal and work with them to figure out how to incorporate all their new precautions into their routines. In an outpatient setting, we might work with individuals who have arthritis in their hands. We'll look at the way that they do their activities that may be contributing to their pain and find ways to modify their actions to decrease pain and stress on their joints. And the list goes on and on. OT can be found in so many different settings, even those that are not very traditional. And that's why Stephanie and I love this field so much, is because the values of our profession can even be applied in so many different settings, such as the church.
Yes, so although occupational therapists don't typically work in the church environment, we wanted to assess what our potential role in the church could be. And we know that the teachings of the Orthodox faith are already rooted in inclusivity for all. And, we believe that we are all God's creatures and that we are all meant to live and to show others the grace of God's image through our actions. However, there are barriers to inclusion that exist which impact children with special needs and their families, and which can lead to withdrawal from participation in the church. So, part of our role as occupational therapists can be to bring awareness to the community as a whole about the barriers to inclusion that currently exist. And so, we started our project by working with the children of the parish, which is so much fun. We played some games that revolved around teaching them awareness of all abilities and discussing how to just be kind, helpful, good Samaritans to those in need. And we also presented to the teachers of the parish, in which we shared a more in-depth definitions of different abilities, as well as contributed adaptive techniques and strategies for making the classroom more inclusive. And with you all, as the community members of St. Demetrios, our hope is just to shed light on the important role of being a parish member and the impact that we can have on the church's ability to be a more comfortable and inviting space for all, by following really just the Christian nature of being forgiving and helpful to others in need. And another piece of what we can do is actually help these families of children with special needs problem solve ways to adapt and be able to participate in the church environment in really their own unique way. So, this might mean having pictures or symbols nearby to represent what's going on during church, or utilizing a prayer rope from constant movement to keep them focused and engaged in liturgy. And the last final way that we feel we could provide our services to the church is by checking to see if any environmental modifications need to be made in order to ensure that the church is accessible for all. So, for example, measuring entryways or passageways and aisles to see if there's really enough space for a wheelchair user to get through, or even someone that has a walker. And there are just so many different ways that we can be different. And so we want to highlight a few in order to demonstrate how diverse the needs of those with disabilities are. So, you may be familiar with impairments that are related to vision, to hearing, and those related to our physical bodies, which are all the ones seen here on the left side of the slide. However, there are also disabilities that you can't really see or that are less obvious, which are what we call invisible disabilities, which you can see on the right side of the slide here. And some of these include mental disorders. So, this might be someone who struggles to control their mood and their emotions. There are others that may fluctuate between different personality characteristics throughout the day. And there are even disorders that can affect our thought patterns, causing fear and anxiety in uncertain circumstances. And then within our next category, we have learning disabilities, which can really range in the impact that it can have on one's function. And you'll see these people have challenges in any of the areas of reading, math, comprehension, writing, and so on. And then this last category is where we have put most of our efforts in raising the community's awareness about, which fall into the category of developmental disabilities. And these include different abilities such as autism spectrum disorder, as well as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And these are the children that tend to face the most barriers to inclusion, unfortunately, who tend to be just the most misunderstood. They can be judged as simply being spoiled or having behavioral problems. And on the flip side, their parents may be judged for being just bad parents who kind of just don't discipline their children properly. However, many times their behavioral outbursts are a manifestation of a deeper neurological difference, which can cause their sensory systems to be just a little bit more sensitive than a typical person. And so, with the teachers, we went a bit more in depth about these different abilities, which we're happy to share with anyone who wishes to watch it. But we found this wonderful video created by an independent animation director by the name of Amelines for the National Autistic Society called Amazing Things Happen. And we really felt that it just so beautifully and concisely explains autism in a way that um, is understandable for all. And it gracefully encourages tolerance and acceptance for all through illustrations that depict these sensory and emotional experiences of people with autism. And so we just kind of hope this maybe sparks a new understanding in your mind of these children's different view of life. And we hope you just enjoy it.
We are all different, and that's wonderful. Some differences are easy to see: height, hairstyle, gender, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be seen: our favorite foods, fear, or special skill. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see a duck, but some of you might have seen a rabbit. Whichever you saw, you are correct. This is just a trick drawing to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn. That's why we are all good at different things. How you feel, which is why we all feel different emotions. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way it affects senses and how we perceive and read situations and interactions. This is known as autism. Many people have autism, so it's likely you already know someone who is autistic. And for this reason, it's useful to know a little bit about autism. The special wiring inside an autistic brain can sometimes make the person good at tasks we may find difficult, such as mathematics, drawing, or music. It can also do the opposite, and activities we find too easy are incredibly difficult to them, such as making friends. The senses constantly send information to your brain about your surroundings and other people. However, when a person's brain and its senses don't communicate well, the brain can become overwhelmed and confused, affecting how they see the world. Picture yourself walking down the street. This is how an autistic brain may experience the same world. Scary, isn't it? Sadly, in many cases, the person can't say out loud how they feel. So even though there's chaos going on in their heads, they seem okay on the outside, unable to ask for help. We will develop behaviors to help us feel calm in uncomfortable situations. We may look away, hug ourselves, chew our fingernails, fidget, bite our lips, and so on. Equally, autistic people develop behaviors that help them cope with these intense moments. These actions may seem unusual, but they're just their way to feel calm. When they happen, it means they are having a hard time. The kind thing to do is not to give them an even harder time by getting cross, ignoring, or mocking. People with autism need friends who are willing to take the time to learn. With good communication and plenty of patience, everyone would be better off. People with autism are not ill or broken. They simply have a unique view of the world. And with a little support from their friends, they might just be able to share that view with us. Autism can make amazing things happen.
So that video so beautifully described the different ability of autism, and it's so important to keep in mind that people with disabilities are not less than, but simply have their own unique struggles as they interact with environments that aren't always made to accommodate them. And this is why you may hear Stephanie and I referring to individuals with disabilities as alternatively having different abilities, because we all have challenges, some more than others. And this doesn't make us unequal in any way, but instead highlights our mutual challenges of being imperfect human beings that need to uplift each other regardless of our differences. And I'm sure we're all familiar with this phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And with this, we should keep in mind how important the church community is for creating a loving and supporting and a supportive learning environment for children with their families to develop and find a comfortable place in the house of the Lord. And research shows just how important participation in religious services and communities of faith is for those with disabilities. Just a few of the many benefits include improved mental health, higher self-esteem, and an overall greater sense of well-being and increased quality of life. But unfortunately, there is also research that shows the withdrawal of attendance to religious services of children with varying disabilities, more specifically, those which are considered invisible or more hidden disabilities, as Stephanie described a bit before. And this is often due to barriers that they face within the community, usually without the community even realizing it. And some of these barriers can include societal attitudes or feeling misunderstood by others in the community, or if the church can't support their physical needs, such as special seating and wheelchair accessibility, or if they just have limitations in engaging in all the church has to offer, whether it's in liturgical services or with the social programs that the church may offer. And therefore, increased awareness of how we can support individuals with disabilities in the church can help bridge the gap for those that want to participate in their religious communities, but don't attend because they feel unsupported. And spreading love and awareness in the faith is rooted in our values as Orthodox Christians, which Stephanie will discuss a little bit more.
Yes, so considering how important religious experiences are to the health and well-being of really of us all, it's important to understand what our faith says about people with disabilities, because the Bible and the teaching of the faith, they're really like our rule book for life. And so the first examples that we have are Moses and Paul, who are imperfect beings just as ourselves, but who were also known to have specific impairments. But ultimately, both Moses and Paul were chosen by God to be his leaders. And so Moses was known specifically to have some form of a speech impediment or a communication challenge. And there's this exchange between Moses and Jesus where Moses says to the Lord, "Oh, my Lord, I am not eloquent either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue." And the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." And so what we see from this is that no matter what challenge we face, we can always trust that God is greater, and that with him anything is really possible, that he is always there to help us and to help us find our way to overcoming all of our adversities. And with Paul, who was said to have a physical illness or infirmity, we see how when God tells him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness," Paul responds, showing his trust in the Lord through his faithful understanding of his infirmity when he says, "Therefore, most gladly, I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So again, Paul here, he's choosing not to see his infirmities as a limitation, but actually as a strength and as a gift of opportunity to grow closer to God. And we have examples of how one person's disability, disability, can draw others actually to God, which we see in the story of the blind man, where someone asked Jesus, "Who has sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Christ's response is, "Neither this man nor his parents have sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him." And so this is just so powerful because it really shows us that disability is not to be equated with sin. So when we do know someone who has a disability and has special needs, we can't assume that they have done something wrong. But as a community and as a church family, we have a duty to lift each other up. And the most perfect example we have of this is the parable of the paralyzed man, who had a disability, making him unable to walk, but who found help and comfort from those around him who lifted him up and carried him to see the Lord. They did everything. They went out of their way, even to make a hole in the roof to bring him down into the house. And Jesus rewarded them for their faith by healing the paralyzed man. And so we too, we need to show this much compassion in the church and do everything that we can to help those who feel that there are barriers to inclusion. And we need to help them find their way and their place in the house of the Lord.
So, what is our role as church community members in supporting our brothers and sisters with disabilities? Many of these are very simple principles that we already strive to live by. And here we're just highlighting the importance of these principles for individuals with different abilities. I'm sure we're all aware of the parable of the Good Samaritan and how these values are so deeply rooted in our faith. When we see another in need of help or even just our kindness, love, and understanding, we're called upon to lift each other up. And praying for one another is also such a powerful way to support others with different abilities that might be struggling. It's also just as important to offer assistance when needed. For example, holding a door or offering your seat to someone with a walker or a wheelchair. This is a simple act of kindness that can go a long way in making our community more inclusive for all abilities. When speaking to a person with different ability, it's important to be attentive to them as a person and not their disability. We are all children of God and unique individuals that have so much to offer to the world, each with unique talents and gifts. Someone with a different ability, whether physical, emotional, or cognitive, is not less intelligent than anyone else. Their brain or their body might just work in a little bit of a different way than ours does. And sometimes our human minds automatically pass judgment on others who appear different from us, and it leads us to distance ourselves from them. Instead of keeping distant, have a conversation with this person, ask them questions, use the opportunity to learn from others and grow closer to God in the process. And keep in mind that we're all equal despite our differences. People with disabilities are once again not less than or less fortunate than us. Many of them lead happy, successful, and fulfilling lives. They just interact with the world a little bit differently. Lastly, and possibly the most important way you can support others with different abilities is to speak up and educate others. If someone tries gossiping with you about someone who appears different or strange, take the moment to remind them that they are just another member of the community that is deserving of love and kindness. Educate others to be mindful that we all have different challenges, some more than others, but we're all worthy of love, understanding, and kindness.
And so, to be able to continue this discussion at home, we'd really like to leave you with some few lasting resources. And here on the left, you'll see we have a few different links. The first one is a website that has simulation games and videos that can allow you to get this perspective or see through children's eyes who have varying challenges and special needs. And the second one here is just the link to the video that we just played earlier in the presentation, which they also actually have in Greek and a few other languages, which make it a great resource that you can really share with anyone that you think might benefit from watching it. The and then the third link that we have here on the left is a really very sweet short cartoon, which is great for children and the whole family, really, which shows a child's journey toward acceptance and perseverance with their own physical disability. And then this last resource here on on the left is a book called Of Such is the Kingdom. And I really highly recommend this book. We used it, me and Nicolette, to pull a lot of our resources from for this project. And there's just such beautiful words and explanations that come from this book because the mother who wrote it, Summer Kinard, she not only is autistic herself, but is rearing children, a few children that she has that are also autistic. And so her viewpoint on disabilities, and especially in the Orthodox faith, are just so unique and so inspiring. And I truly feel that it could help continue to open your eyes to how important and really how feasible it is to make the church community a more inclusive space. And so we really want to leave you all with this prayer for increased awareness and openness of our minds and our hearts to those of all abilities. Because all children need to learn to know God at their level. And no matter how we learn or what challenges we face, there's one simple form of complex communication that we can all understand, and that's love. Because through love, we can learn about God's grace, and we can learn how to live in His image so that all can feel accepted and have a place at His table.
And with that, we just like to thank you all again for taking the time to view and listen to this presentation. We would really appreciate if you could leave any questions or comments you may have in the comment section of this video, just so we can have an idea of if this presentation was impactful and or helpful in increasing your awareness of different abilities, and how we can all play our role in making the church a more inclusive place of worship for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much, and we wish you a blessed Pascha.